Hey, boils and ghouls, and welcome to day 7 of the 13 days of Halloween with Cyanide and Hemlock. Can you believe it's almost over? I feel like this month has flown by for us. But because we're so close to our favorite holiday, I figured that we would jump into something a little more cultural, I suppose. We all know the traditions and celebrations that surround All Hallows Eve, Halloween, or Samhain in America. But what about what goes on in other parts of the world? Today, we'll take a look at countries from all around the globe that do things a little differently than we do in the US. And maybe, if it piques your interest enough, you can incorporate some of these things or things from your ancestry into your yearly spooky activities. But before we get into the different traditions, let's start with a little Halloween history, shall we? Halloween, All Hallows Eve, Samhain, all started in Ireland. What we now know as Halloween came from Ireland's Celtic and pagan holiday, Samhain. Today, in Ireland, they still celebrate the holiday as they did thousands of years ago, with bonfires, trick-or-treating, parties, and games. Parties are garnished with traditional foods as well as a game called Snap Apple. Snap Apple is sort of like bobbing for apples in a, I guess, Irish way. They would put a apple on a string and you would try to quote unquote bob for it like we do now. One popular food that they serve is barmbrack, an Irish fruit cake that contains buttons, coins, and rings for fortune telling. Each of the different trinket inside gives a different fate to the person who finds it. Obviously, a ring would be marriage. Coins is for wealth. And many other of the trinkets in there have its own little tradition tied to it. It's good to see that this spooky holiday is still alive and well in its birthplace. Our next stop is going to be to our northern neighbors in Canada. Here, things are pretty similar to what we're used to in the US, with their trick-or-treating, parties, and decorating. One thing that does seem to differ is their spin on trick-or-treating. Before UNICEF moved their donations online in 2006, collecting small change was somewhat of a tradition with Canadian trick-or-treating. How cool is that? Another fun difference is in British Columbia. On Halloween night, they shoot fireworks in celebration. And according to one of my sources, in 2014, Nunavut moved their Halloween festivities to the community hall, canceling the practice of door-to-door trick-or-treating due to the risk of roaming polar bears. Now, apparently, polar bears aren't a fan of door-to-door socializing. Our next spooky stop is more of a journey into a culture. In Mexico, Latin America, and Spain, they celebrate what we know as the Day of the Dead. But don't let that name fool you. Their celebration isn't just a one-day thing. It spans over a 3-day period, beginning on October 31st and ending on November 2nd, All Souls Day. This is the day, or rather a few days, where people can celebrate their ancestors that have passed and remember them through stories, celebrating their life, and many wonderful treats. Often families build altars for their loved ones and decorate it with candy, flowers, photographs, fresh water, and the ancestors' favorites. Also, a basin of water and a towel is usually put out so that the spirits can participate in the festivities. On the last day of their celebration, the family gather around the gravestones of their loved ones to pay their respects. They have a picnic, and they even clean up the graves of their loved ones. It's safe to say that this wonderful culture definitely celebrates their version of Halloween the best. Now that we've celebrated our ancestors long gone, we'll be traveling across the pond to France. Halloween wasn't really a thing in France until 1996. Can you believe it? The day is also not a time to celebrate the dead. The French adopted the holiday from American tradition, thanks to the influence of American tourists and a lot of other things. And of course, the French couldn't pass up an opportunity to have a celebration and dress up. Like in America, but with their own twist, the people of France dress up, decorate their stores and homes, and even have a pumpkin patch outside of Paris for people to pick their own pumpkins. Now, it's not like what we're used to in America, but it's still amazing that we have influence on other countries so that they can start celebrating an amazing holiday. No one is sure if Halloween will stick there, but for now, the people of France will happily enjoy any excuse to party. From France, we will briefly touch on the neighboring countries of Europe that do things a little differently than we do in America. Like France, Germany didn't celebrate Halloween until the 1990s as well. They too adopted the American tradition and turned Halloween into a countrywide celebration, with parties for the adults and trick-or-treating for the children. And fun fact, the people put away their knives on Halloween night so that their returning spirits don't have anything to harm them with. I found that quite interesting. Like both Germany and France, Greece also adopted the holiday from America in the 2000s and has been celebrating ever since. And our last stop on our European tour is Italy. Like the culture in Spain, Italians celebrate over a few days and in similar ways. Families leave out fresh flowers on the graves of loved ones, and even strangers who don't have any flowers, to pay their respects. Apparently, Italy is absolutely beautiful during this day because every graveyard is covered in flowers, and it's beautiful in a morbid way. They also pay their respects with a red candle in their windows at sunset and set a place at their table, hoping their family members will pay them a visit. And our last stop will be into Asian culture. In China, a holiday close to Halloween is actually celebrated in the summer called Hungry Ghost Festival. In their culture, it is believed that during this time of the year, the spirits become restless. They began roaming the earth. This festival is a way to feed the spirits, both in food and money. But this celebration isn't just a day like Halloween. It's celebrated all month long. Like China, Japan has its own version of Halloween that's celebrated. The festival is called Obon Festival, a festival where food is prepared and red lanterns are hung. During the festival, a fire is lit each night to show the spirits where their families can be found. This is only a snippet of what the festival is like. But like China and Spain, the Japanese go above and beyond to pay their respects for their lost loved ones. Halloween is celebrated differently for all and goes by many different names. But the main focus is to celebrate the lives of the ones we've lost. We briefly touched on a few cultures, but there are countless cultures and countries around the world that have their own celebrations. If I didn't cover your culture in our video, be sure to let me know below in the comments how you tend to pay your respects in your own respective culture. This, unfortunately, brings day 7 of the 13 days of Halloween with Cyanide and Hemlock to a close. We hope you enjoyed a little snippet of spooky celebrations around the world. If you liked this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe and become part of the Haunted Ghoul Society, which we now have a Facebook group for. You could interact with us and other wonderfully spooky ghouls throughout the year. We'll also leave that link down in the description below for you if you'd like to join us. And that's all for me today. So remember, stay spooky.